is right. So guys, we are at Meadowhall train station. Chloe is off to Leeds to start her first day of her new job in JP Morgan and Chase. Big girl stuff.
Yep.
So finished now in Bean Melon in Manchester and off to Leeds. So our commute for her now 3 times a week. So I'll be dropping her to the train station in the mornings. But hopefully she gets on well now today.
And the train station's only 5 minutes away from us. So
Train station's only 5 minutes away from us, which is actually grand. Hour-long train, but at least she can brush up on a bit of her reading or a couple of podcasts or something like that. So yeah, big life stuff.
I know. It doesn't feel real yet though. I don't think it'll hit me until I step in the door.
Yeah. I was giving her a grilling over what she was wearing, like her runners, and she was going to wear jeans. I was like, you have to make a good impression.
Yeah.
That's just me. Probably go in now, they'll all be wearing fucking tracksuits. No one thinks these days.
From BMY Melon, I'm used to everyone is just in casual, like jeans and a top or whatever. So I was like, I'll just wear jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah. But yeah, look, we'll see. She won't really know until she gets in there. I imagine you'll probably be doing fucking nothing. I don't even think your boss is in until tomorrow anyway.
He's not.
So I think she'll probably just be sitting there on her computer all day today. So she might have a little bit of a boring day. But yeah, I'm hoping now you're not going to be getting in too late in the evening time.
I know.
It's probably going to be like 7:30 or 8 o'clock though, to be honest. Which won't be ideal on prep, but it is what it is.
The train is literally 5 minutes away from my office, so...
Yeah, 5-minute walk when she gets off the train. So it's ideal. Worked out well. So onwards and upwards.
Yup.
I'm absolutely wrecked. I think I checked in with Cuba there. I think we're going to just start my deload and diet break. It's like 3 days early because I'm absolutely smashed. Took me like over an hour to get to sleep last night and I got like 5.5 hours sleep, so I'm not feeling particularly fruity. But if that does happen, I'll check back in with you then. Oh yes guys, how are we? I hope you're all keeping well. Checking back in with you post yesterday for that last clip that you would have seen, and we have actually decided to pull the diet break a little bit earlier. Okay, so original plan of action was to actually start on Sunday when I checked in with Cuba, so we've only actually really shifted it back 4 days anyway. However, it is a little bit frustrating from my perspective because normally when I need to take a deload or a diet break, it's because I'm fucked from training, right? 9 times out of 10, body is smashed, you know, I'm kind of maybe seeing maintenance of numbers and like things like that, so I just need to take a step back. But training performance has been really good. You know, when I was down in Manchester at the weekend, despite some very poor sleep, push and pull were very good sessions. Got back here to Rotherham, and then when I went in to train legs earlier in the week, I had an unbelievable session. Now, I think that's probably why I potentially, you know, dug myself into a hole, because that session was so good, and maybe I pushed myself a little bit too hard. Well, not that you can ever push yourself a little bit too hard, but I think I was kind of coming down with something post Manchester. So like sleep was obviously poor anyway, but it had been kind of deteriorating for a while. And obviously we're around like huge crowds of people and stuff like that. So I think I just picked up something because last kind of like 2-3 nights on the trot, my resting heart rate has been elevating and my body temperature has been elevating alongside with it. So I think body temperature last night was like plus 0.6 degrees, which is actually quite high on the hour ring readings. I don't know if I've ever seen it elevated that high. So yeah, I'm not feeling the best. I probably feel more smashed today than I did yesterday, and today is like my 3rd day of rest in a row. So that's definitely not a good sign. Also today, because I got such a fucking poor sleep and I was up at like 4:30 in the morning, my appetite is very poor, right? And that's kind of another sign for me that I know I am carrying a little bit of fatigue, especially because, you know, like I'm nearly 5 weeks into my mini cut now. My body weight has come down over 6 kilos and I have no appetite, you know, so like it makes no sense. And I actually, before I kind of started feeling like this, I was just starting to get an appetite. I just had 1 or 2 days where I was kind of like, oh, I'm starting to get a little bit hungry now. And then boom, complete 180, zero appetite at all. When I dropped Chloe to the train station this morning, I couldn't finish my cream of rice beforehand. So I ate half it, put it in the fridge, dropped her to the train station, came back and ate the other half. So it took me fucking ages to get through it. And the meals are kind of going down a little bit slower now today. But look, it is what it is. So plan of action is, you know, 4 days of complete rest. I'll just try and get the additional diet break food in. So we have actually upped food by 40 grams of cream of rice has been added, and I think 75 or 100 grams of rice. Sorry. So 100 rice, which I believe is like 250 calories, and then the 40 cream of rice, which I believe is about 100 and something calories. So I think we're about 400 calories up. Body weight came up by 0.5 of a kilo after yesterday's food, but I think that's just kind of higher food volume. So yeah, I don't think I'll see too much of an increase in weight, to be honest, but I've been instructed to not move that much today. Diet break steps have been brought back to 7,000 anyway. We've pulled the Clen back to 40 from 80. We've also pulled out the L-carnitine, but I accidentally jabbed it into myself this morning. Absolute junkie, fucking pin cushion. Dara over here just couldn't wait to fucking pin himself this morning, so had the L-carnitine in before I actually realised I wasn't supposed to put it in. But I'll just remove it tomorrow and it'll be absolutely grand. So today is Thursday. I'm hoping I can be back in the gym on Saturday. That would be 4 full days rest. But honestly, if I'm still not feeling great, I'm just going to need to take another day's rest, because the last thing I want is to go back in prematurely, train 2 days on the trot, and then realize all of a sudden, no, I'm fucked again. And then, have another month of a mini cut to do, because I think higher levels of output, stimulants, less food is going to cause some degree of fatigue building up anyway. But then being a little bit sick on top of that, it's not really the best recipe for progression. So we just take the time we need to recover. It's just about knowing when to push and when to pull, guys. And normally when I have to pull back, it's because of my training. This time it's not. So that is really frustrating, because when my training is not going good, right, it's almost like I welcome the deload and I want the deload, because I'm getting frustrated that my training isn't progressing. But now I'm frustrated that I can't get into the gym and keep progressing the way I actually was. So I really don't want to take this deload and diet break, and ideally, even when Cuba scheduled in for this Sunday, I didn't really want to take it anyway. I wanted to push it out another week, but it is what it is. I'm just going to follow the plan and just see how we're feeling over the weekend. But look, it's been a good opportunity to catch up with a little bit of work anyway. I have a good couple of new clients to set up, which I'm absolutely buzzing with, a couple of very good ones, and also just a couple of other things that I'm trying to do on the back end as well. Some free resources that I'm going to be releasing to all you guys if you have any interest. So working on a little bit of a kind of a course, I would say. I'm going to do a couple of Loom modules here. It's basically going to be kind of 4 weeks free coaching. So how I would kind of set up someone to coach them, and maybe try and give a little bit of insight to my coaching process, and give a template for someone to do that for themselves for like the first month to see how they get on and kind of kickstart their journey. So I'm going to aim to have that released by the end of the month. So if anyone is interested in that, guys, then click the link in my Instagram bio and join my newsletter, as I will be releasing details through there over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that one. So going to get back working on that now. I'm actually due to have a meal in 15 minutes as well, so I'm going to try and get that back in, or try and get that back in, as if I'm going to get it sick up. And then I will touch base with you again for some more updates, probably tomorrow, because there's not going to be much else happening for the rest of the day, to be honest. This is probably going to be a really boring vlog, but I'll try and come up with something else to do in this vlog. I might actually put up an Instagram Q&A and run that actually at the end of this. So there's an idea. Quick fucking thinking, Dara. That's the one. So anyway, guys, we'll wrap that up there, and I'll catch up with you in a little bit. All right, my guys, we are back in action and feeling a little bit fresher, thank God. It is now Saturday. It is our last day of rest, and we're back to the gym tomorrow. So I'm going to give a little bit of a quick update and rundown as to where we're at currently with the deload, diet break, mini cut, etc. But first, I'm going to run through the Q&A that I promised in the last clip. So put up a question box on Instagram, and I got a couple of questions across. Not a ton of questions, to be fair, but some good ones that I do think I can expand on quite well. So where will we start? Right. Do you plan to do any client meetups in the UK soon? So one of my clients asked me this. So this is something that I definitely have been thinking about quite a lot recently, and something I actually suggested to Olin as well. It's something I would really, really like to do. However, I'm not entirely sure where I would actually do it, right? Obviously, I am based in the UK, but Olin is based back home in Ireland. The majority of both of our clients are actually based in Ireland. So if we were to have a team meetup, I feel like initially it would definitely be in Ireland and not in the UK. So I know, Pedro, you are over in Spain. So you're going to be flying either way. Probably easy for you to fly into Ireland because you're going to have an EU passport. But yeah, it would definitely be in Ireland. Now, logistically, right, it's a challenge as to where we would actually host it, because I have a lot of clients obviously where I'm from, like in Clonmel, but I don't think that gym would be too like meet-up friendly. It's a little bit more of a commercial gym. Olin is based in Middleton in Cork, and again, that gym wouldn't be, you know, too meet-up kind of friendly. Now, there are some gyms in Cork I could think of that would be, you know, good for that, Motivated Fitness being one of them. I actually know the owner of that gym as well, as I used to train in his other gym in Tralee. So that would probably be the number one spot I could think of that we would host the meetup. I know a lot of Olin's clients are probably based locally in Cork. I don't have too many clients based in Cork. I kind of have clients spread all over Ireland, if I'm perfectly honest. So, you know, it would most likely be Cork, right? Or Dublin. But then we run into the issue if it's in Dublin. Dublin's a little bit more central, I feel, for everyone, like with all of my clients, and easier obviously to fly into from other countries. But I don't know any of the gyms or any of the owners of the gyms or anything in Dublin. So like, I'm not just going to rock up to a gym in Dublin and be like, hey, what's the crack? I'm going to host a big, you know, team meetup here. I just don't think it would like work that well. So it would likely be in Cork if it is going to happen, and then it would just have to be coordinated at a good time that obviously everyone could be there. But definitely something I've been thinking about quite a lot, and definitely something I want to do. You know, I will be home in Ireland in July for my cousin's wedding, so could potentially look at doing it then. And I also will be home in Ireland in September before the PC Ireland show. I'll probably spend a little bit of time back home, you know, before I head up to Derry for that show. So it could be in and around that time, which I think would be sufficient time to actually plan and organise it. So yeah, potentially. Leave it with me. I'll have a chat with Olin. I'll you know, put a little message into the group chat and see if that is something that people will be interested in, because I think there's only a point in doing it if, you know, there is the interest there and a couple of people would go. You know, I'm not going to go through the effort of like hosting a meetup and, you know, 5 people rocking on and 2 of which myself and Owen, you know what I mean? So yeah, we'd have to kind of get the numbers for it, which I think we probably would at this stage as well, especially with the team being a little bit more interactive on both ends with my clients and Owen clients now that we're doing the you know, team chats and calls at the weekend. So yeah, look, we'll see. Next question, what makes a good client-coach relationship? So in my opinion, communication, right? Communication is going to be absolutely key here. I think one of the big areas I fell down with myself, I suppose, as a client in the past was like not properly communicating how I was actually feeling to my own coach Kuba, because I kind of felt like, you know, oh, I'm not being like hardcore enough. You know, if I tell him I'm smashed, he's just going to think I'm a pussy and I don't want to train or whatever. Or, you know, if there's an issue with this or an issue with that, you know, just not saying it and just trying to push through. I think, you know, if you are experiencing issues with anything, you need to just communicate it with your coach. You know, if there's a certain exercise that, you know, after 3 or 4 attempts, it's just not really suiting you and your physique, it needs to be communicated so the adjustment can be made. And there's a 2-way flow of communication, okay? I think on the coach's end, you need to be very open and adaptable to like different clients, and you need to kind of meet your client halfway. You know, I think certain people are going to have, you know, certain goals, and everyone actually needs to be coached differently. You know, you kind of need to meet the person where they're at that current time in their journey. So if they are a beginner in the gym, you know, you can't expect them to be nailing things to the level that someone who's a little bit more intermediate or a little bit more advanced would be. But at the end of the day, regardless of the level, the most important thing is the communication from that client, right? So if I have a very, very beginner client, I'll kind of dumb down to them how much kind of maybe feedback I want. I won't make it like a super specific. I won't overwhelm them with like the training side of things and the training execution. I'm just going to focus on the basic fundamental stuff. Adherence to the plan, enjoyment of their training, you know, making sure they're training hard then to a certain extent. And then as a client starts to progress, or if a client's already at a more advanced level, really, really detailed feedback in terms of absolutely everything, you know, making sure their execution is on point and grilling them and that, holding them to much higher standards in terms of like their adherence, off-plan meals, social occasions, etc. You coach the client based off their goals, right? If someone's only in the gym 2 months and they're just looking to kind of have a decent structure to their training and nutrition, you kind of need to meet them there where they are, right? And communicate with them properly to make sure they're not being overwhelmed, to make sure they understand everything fully, because a lot of people will tell you that they understand something when in actual fact they don't. They don't want to seem dumb to you, the coach, who's way, way more advanced, and they kind of put you on a pedestal, right? And then, you know, you have the clients who just don't do what you tell them to do, and you know that they're not doing what you're telling them to do, because as coaches, we're not stupid, you know what I mean? Like, I've been training for 10 plus years, and I've coached hundreds of people. So I can see the trends when someone isn't following the plan. You know, whether they tell me they're checking or not, I know when someone is being dishonest. And I think when you know someone's not following the plan and they're not telling you, and you prompt them to tell you and they still don't tell you, there's no trust there, okay? So no communication, no trust doesn't make for a very good coach-client relationship. So I think communication is going to be number one, and as a byproduct of that, the trust kind of comes with it. So that is the single most important thing. And I think, like, being a good match personality-wise too, you know, everyone's kind of personalities are different. I think the majority of people who sign up with me probably just like my personality, right? Surprisingly, as I'm a little bit blunt, I'm a little bit no bullshit. That appeals to some people. Some people like the tough love sort of approach. Some people want their hand fucking held. They want a babysitter. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone's a beginner, I'll meet them halfway, right? I'll meet them where they're at. I won't be super strict on them, but there's a certain level of commitment and expectation I expect from absolutely everybody. And like, if they're not giving me that, then it's just not gonna work out. So we'll wrap that question up there. I could keep going all day, but anyway. When targeting a bulk, how many calories on top of maintenance do you recommend? So I would recommend between 200 to 300 calories, right? Simple as. Now, a caveat to this: what's your maintenance? Do you actually know where your maintenance is? Not a lot of people actually do. You might think you do, but unless you monitor something, you're not going to be able to manage it, okay? So you need to maybe establish where you think your maintenance is at, but be super fucking adherent in following those level of calories. I mean 100% adherent. I don't mean, oh, you have a little off-plan meal at the weekend, you try and factor this and you try and factor that in. Pick a set level of calories, okay? I'm gonna eat 2,500 calories every single day. I'm gonna have, 220 protein, I'm gonna have 250 carb, and I'm gonna have, however many fats, right? 40, 50 grams of fat. What you need to realize is that with that certain level of calories, right? When it's consistent, you are then going to establish whether you're at maintenance or not. But it needs to be consistent. If you're having 2,500 one day and 3,500 on the weekend, blah, 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 right? Your body weight might go up on the scales at the end of the week, and you might be like, oh, I'm in too much of a surplus here. But your actual allocated 2,500 calories might be sufficient, but you're just not following it, okay? So it comes down to adherence. You need to be adherent over long periods of time. I ask every single client who first signs up with me, I give them a certain level of calories. I say, stick to this 100% for 2 weeks. Don't have anything off plan, don't have any treats, any snacks, don't have any off plan meals, don't drink any alcohol. Stick to these level of calories for 2 weeks. I'm then going to be able to see their average body weight trend from week 1 to week 2, whether it's going up, whether it's going down, or whether it's the same. And then I'm going to know if they're at maintenance or not. So this is what you need to do. You need to weigh yourself every single day under the same conditions, i.e. first thing in the morning when you wake up, fasted after you go to the toilet. Weigh yourself every single day, get an average from that week, get an average from the second week, see what the difference is, right? If you're gaining weight, you're in a surplus. You don't need to change your calories. If you're not, you need more calories, okay? And I would just add 200 calories, repeat that process again, add 200 calories, repeat that process again, until you're gaining around a pound a week, okay? Or 0.4 kilos a week, because you're a male, right? I'll give a male example. In this case, for a female, it might be a little bit lower, like half a pound a week, right? Now, this is absolutely key, okay? And again, if adherence is on point, all you will need is 200 calories of a surplus, right? There's often been times in an off season where I'm following the same amount of calories for 2-3 weeks. My body weight doesn't move. I increase them with 200 calories a day, and all of a sudden I start gaining a pound a week. Okay, so if adherence is on point, you only need a very small amount of calories, but you need to constantly manage and monitor what your weigh-ins are, because your maintenance will adapt and change. Okay, your maintenance at 90 kilos versus your maintenance at 100 kilos is going to be very different, and vice versa. So your maintenance is constantly changing, right? It might even change on a daily basis. Obviously your output comes into play as well. Are you doing more or less steps? And this is again the importance of having targets, the importance of having consistency, always hitting 10,000 steps a day, always eating 2,500 calories, always tracking that under the same conditions every single morning to truly know with accuracy where you're currently at, okay? So that is my recommendation there. Choose one: more frequency, less consistent exercise selection versus less frequency and consistent exercise selection. This is a bit of a confusing question, to be honest. I would go with less frequent and consistent exercise selection, if I'm honest. I think when it comes to training, for me, right, you want to stick with all the movements you're doing for as long as possible and get as strong on them as you possibly can. And why I wouldn't chop and change exercises is because, let's say for example, right, I haven't done a barbell hip hinge in a couple of weeks, okay? So I haven't done an SLDL or an RDL in a couple of weeks, right? I'm not gonna go every second week, or I'm not gonna do 4 weeks on a dumbbell RDL and switch to 4 weeks on a barbell RDL and constantly chop and change between those two movement patterns, because it takes a while to kind of build back up your proficiency with a movement. Have you ever gone into the gym and used a completely new machine in a completely different gym that you've never trained in before, and you're kind of like, oh God, I don't like this. I don't like this machine. I don't like how it feels. Then you do it again the following week. Then you do it again the following week. And every single week it starts to feel a little bit better. You're connecting with it a little bit better. You've adjusted your seat height. You've adjusted your setup. And now you're like, fuck, I love this exercise. This is my new favorite exercise, right? It takes time to acquire skill and proficiency doing these movements. So if it's taken you a couple of weeks to really acquire that skill and proficiency so that you can really target that target muscle effectively, why would you then change it out for something else where you're going to have to go through that process again? Okay, now I think as a beginner, this is fucking crucial. When you're a little bit more advanced, obviously for myself, right, a lot of exercises, it's like riding a bike. It doesn't take me that long to get back into them because I already have 10 plus years of building proficiency on these movements. But even still, right, if I swap back to doing a barbell RDL or a barbell SLDL, and I've been doing dumbbells for the last couple of weeks, it still takes me a couple of rotations before it actually clicks and it starts to feel really good and the strength starts to fly on that, okay? So I would always go with, more consistent exercise selection. This question is still a little bit confusing because more frequency, less consistent exercise selection. Like frequency of what though? Like frequency of training per body part, frequency of your split, like frequency of what? It doesn't really make too much sense to me, to be honest. I think I know what you're on about here. But yeah. What are your thoughts on keto bread for cut phase? Mate, I'm sorry, but like this is an absolutely fucking ridiculous question, in my opinion. Like, what are my thoughts on keto bread for cut phase? Like, just fucking eat some normal bread, mate. If you want to have some normal bread, right? What even is keto bread? Like, is this just like some sort of processed fucking garbage that's like 0 calorie and it's targeted or it's marketed as a bread, right? My thoughts on anything that isn't like a single food whole ingredient is minimize it or do not have it at all in your diet, okay? So all these like fucking like noodles, 0 calorie noodles you get, these fucking keto breads, like all these like just processed shit foods, do not have them at all, okay? If you want to have some bread, have some fucking sourdough bread, right? Some real bread. Don't go having this processed shit, you know? Like, I don't like processed shit, right? Like, not that I'm a full-blown Eddie Abu nutritional populist, but I agree with a lot of shit he says, right? Not the very extreme stuff, but I get the premise on which he's like, you know, kind of originally marketed himself, right? People have gone so far removed from like just what a normal diet is, it's not even funny. Like, you know, think back to your grandparents' age. Like, what were they eating? You know, they were eating meat, they were eating potatoes, right? They were just eating basic fucking foods, vegetables they grew out in their back garden. Now people are eating these fucking skinny foods, this and that, fucking fiber one bars, like low calorie fucking crisps, this, that, all this fucking shit. Just eat some real food. Okay, like what you want to eat is plenty of fruit, plenty of vegetables, right? Like actual real carb sources, like an actual real protein sources, not all this processed shit, okay? Keto bread is probably going to make your digestion absolutely fucked, okay? Because it's going to have a million ingredients on the back of it. So just steer clear of all this shit. Like, people think with this stuff, they're like hacking their diet, right? Or they're like, you know, oh, I love bread, so like if I put keto bread on my diet, it's no calories and like I'll hit that bread craving for me. It's like, nah, it'll probably make that bread craving worse because you'd be eating the keto bread, be like, this is shit, I wish I had some real bread, and you end up binging on a sliced pan. You know what I mean? So yeah, anything, mate, that is processed like that, just stay away from it. But I'm very interested to know what even is keto bread, to be perfectly honest. Like, keto bread, oh Jesus. This is a good one. All right. Favorite all-time bodybuilder and why? Oof. this is such a tough one as well. I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently, surprisingly enough, right? So my favorite all-time bodybuilder and why, I think it's a toss-up between Jay Cutler and Dorian Yates, but I think I've been edging closer towards Jay recently. I think it's all encompassing, right? You obviously have to take their physique into consideration, right? So the physique is obviously going to be a big one. Their legacy is going to be a big one as well. So obviously all the Mr. O's are going to be like a lot of people's favorite bodybuilders, or maybe not, right? But I think their mentality is super important, but also like life outside of bodybuilding. Like life outside of bodybuilding is a huge one for me, right? You look at Dorian Yates these days, and it's like, look, Dorian back in the day was like so ahead of his time, right? And bodybuilding Dorian is up there for me because he instigated the era of the mass monsters, right? All these fucking cunts in America, they were living the dream, they were on the beach, they were just like part-time in it, not taking it that seriously, they just got where they were because of their genetics, some of them, you know, the likes of Kevin Levroni and all these guys. Dorian was in his fucking dungeon temple gym in Birmingham, away from all the spotlight, away from all the publicity, not letting it all get to his head, just training like an absolute fucking animal, and just coming to America once a year and just smoking everyone. Love it. Absolutely love that, right? That's fucking real bodybuilding. He is a real bodybuilder. No fucking part-time shit there. I also think with Dorian, he was so ahead of his time because like, back then, like, bodybuilding has advanced so much. Like, even something simple as like calories and macros. Like, back then that like wasn't a thing. Do you get me? But Dorian did it. Like, Dorian tracked it. He wrote everything down in his notebook. He wrote all his training down, you know. Even like when you look at interviews of him, there's certain things he said, like post-gym, you know, he used to have like a Mars bar, like a can of Coke sometimes, and everyone's like slagging him, like, oh, you know, you can't have that, like you can't be eating that shit, like blah, blah, blah. But he understood that it was quick carbs, right, to replenish him after his workout, right, when nobody else understood that. And I think he was like a pioneer of bodybuilding, of training. You know, it was very mature of him to understand that like more didn't equal better. He's like, he'd add a little bit more volume and see that he wouldn't get the response off it. He'd adjust it back down and he found his sweet spot. He was meticulous in everything. And I absolutely love that, right? So I think it's tough because bodybuilding, like Dorian, for me, is probably like the GOAT, right? For all of those reasons that I mentioned. But then like overall, and like these days when I like look at bodybuilders and retired bodybuilders, I just love Jay Cutler, man, right? Because like Jay Cutler had the mindset as well. You know that video where he's like, I lived in a fucking box. You pick up the, people are calling me, I pick up the phone, they're talking negativity, I just hang up on them, all that shit. I love that, right? So Jay, for me, was really good as well. And his physique, man. Jay Cutler, like look up like Jay Cutler 1999, Jay Cutler 2001, those old videos, like his first like DVDs that he used to release, mate, his physique, before he got too big, like his physique was just fucking wild. I know he didn't have the smallest waist in bodybuilding history, but even at that, he's probably one of the widest bodybuilders of all time. Like he's up to a big Ramy for like widest bodybuilders. And like, he was just huge. He was like fucking 25, 26, 27 in those early videos. And he was just a monster. So like his physique for me is better than Dorian's. And yeah, I think post bodybuilding and everything outside of that, Jay's an incredibly successful businessman. I think while he was in bodybuilding, he was very smart. He was buying properties, he was doing this, he's doing that. These days, man, he's still such a G. I love watching his podcast. Dorian is out in Marbella fucking smoking weed and doing yoga, and I'm like, you know, that doesn't really appeal to me, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, I think all around like Jay Cutler, but it's a tough one because Dorian back in the day was one of the GOATs, to be honest. Mini cut, weight loss stall by third week. What to do? Inflammation, remove trend, stop cut. Like, I'm sorry, this is just another ridiculous question. I would say in this sort of a scenario, hire a coach, mate. It doesn't have to be me, but hire a coach. Like if you're 3 weeks into a mini cut and you're like, do I stop the cut? Do I remove trend? Am I inflamed? You sound like you're losing your fucking marbles, mate. So I'd say pull the trend out straight away anyway, because you're definitely not cut out for it. Let me look at your fucking page here actually to see what we're working with. Oh, right, you've got the Jesus cross in the bio here, and you've got 3 pictures. One of the sky, one of you driving the car, and one of the Bible. Yeah, definitely remove the trend, mate, or you're going to hell. Back squat 1 rep, what is it? Steve Keller, I'm sure you've fucking asked me this a million times, mate, and I'm always going to give you the same answer. I don't do 1 rep maxes, okay? I haven't done 1 rep maxes in years. They serve no purpose for bodybuilding purposes whatsoever. I think my back squat 1 rep max is fucking absolutely shit as well. I think it's like 160 or 170 kilos, and I'm pretty sure I did that when I was like 84 kilos when I was in Tralee on my work placement, when I was in my 3rd year in uni, and I was like 21 maybe. So yeah, and that's still pretty shit for 21-year-olds these days, but I was natty at the time, so there you go. I've actually never done a 1 rep max on anything since I've taken gear. So yeah, I'd love to see what my 1 rep maxes actually are, but I never will. So yeah. And lastly, we're going to wrap up this one. What is your ultimate goal with bodybuilding? Oof, deep question. So obviously, and I think for a lot of people, you know, it's to turn pro, right? And certainly for me, that's all I can see in my sights right now, and I'm not really looking too far beyond that, okay? I don't think you really can, unless you're like some absolute genetic freak and you know you're going to turn pro really young, or you already have turned pro really young, or you know your rate of progression is just like way quicker than like everyone else around you, and you just know you're one of those guys. I don't think you can really have a goal beyond turning pro until you just fucking turn pro, right? Or you're kind of a little bit delusional. I think even for most people, the idea of turning pro is actually delusional, right? And I'm under no illusions that for me, it's going to take me a lot to get there and to turn pro. I do think I have the genetics for it. I think my genetics are above average. I think my work rate and the time and the discipline and everything else I'm willing to put in, I think eventually it will happen for me, but when, I don't know, you know. I don't think it's going to be very soon, to be honest. I think as I'm moving along, I keep like pushing it back when I think in my mind it's going to be, you know. Like I remember thinking, you know, maybe like 2 years ago, I want to turn pro by 30, and now I'm like, geez, I'd be happy if I turn pro by like 32, and now I'm thinking, fuck, I hope I definitely have it by 34, because I want to be fucking, you know, having kids then and doing this and doing that. So, you know, it takes time, man. Bodybuilding takes time, you know, it really does. So for me, like the ultimate goal, I think, is just to turn pro. I think beyond turning pro, I don't think I would be a very good pro, if I'm perfectly honest, you know. Now, if I did turn pro by the time I am between 30 to 32, I would definitely do a pro show, but I don't think I'd have any expectations, okay? I don't even think with my genetics, I'd be getting first call outs, because I think shape and structure wise, right? I think I have very decent shape and structure. I don't have the tiniest waist, but I think everything fits and flows quite well together, in my opinion. And if I just got massive, I think I'd look pretty fucking good. But based off my current rate of progress, how much muscle I think I'm gaining as time is going on, you know, how much longer I think it's going to take me to get to a certain size, etc. You know, I just don't think I'm one of these guys who like has the genetics to go really far, okay? And like, I'm very self-aware on that. I think more people should be self-aware about that, to be honest, because I think people are getting into bodybuilding now thinking pro cards are just falling out of the sky for them. And yes, it's a lot easier to turn pro now than it was back in the day, but it's still not easy, right? You turn pro, you're technically in the 1%. 1% of bodybuilding, 1% of NPC competitors every single year turn pro. Okay, so regardless of whether there's 1,000 pro cards handed out a year now or not, 1% of people who are competing turn pro, okay? Back in the day, there was less pro cards, but back in the day, there was far less people competing. So was it easier back in the day, or was it harder, right? You don't actually really truly know, because things have changed so much. So many more people are doing the sport, right? So yeah, you know, there might be more pro cards. It might be easier to get a pro card, but is it easier to make it as a pro? Definitely not. It's probably harder these days. Like, look at the potential top 10 Olympians in this year's Olympia this year, right? Mate, compare that to the top 10 from like fucking even 10 or 15 years ago. And they'd smoke fucking almost every single one of them, right? You take out your Ronnies and you take out your Jays and those sort of guys. Like, some of the guys who are going to be placing like 10th, 9th, 8th at the Olympia this year will be like 3rd, 4th place at the Olympia like 10, 15 years ago. And that's a fucking fact. Even guys at this year's Olympia who are placing like 15th would probably be some of the guys in the top like 6 to 8 from a couple of years ago, in my opinion. I don't think people realize how good the top level athletes are after getting now. So yeah, I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but I think in a dream scenario, like, not take forever to turn pro, do a couple of pro shows, enjoy it, not come dead last, meet a couple of people, get to travel the world, you know, doing a couple of shows and stuff, and have some sick memories. And that's about it, mate. And ultimate goal of bodybuilding as well is to be able to continue to do it for as long as I possibly can, okay? And to continue to make a living from it, and to hopefully, after I retire from bodybuilding, finish bodybuilding, be established as a very good bodybuilding coach and be working primarily with bodybuilding athletes. I think actually, when I think about it, that's probably more an ultimate bodybuilding goal of mine than my own personal bodybuilding endeavors, because regardless of how well I do personally as a bodybuilder, I fucking absolutely love bodybuilding. And like, you know, I hope to eventually someday have clients that are just way more genetically gifted than me and help them to do incredible fucking things and actually go far as pros, potentially. Like, that would be the dream. You know, that is the fucking dream, because I'm self-aware enough to know that's not going to be me, right? And that's not me not believing in myself. You know, I have the belief in myself to think I can turn pro, which, you know, these days too many people do. So like, that sounds like a bit of a delusional claim in itself. So yeah, I'm realistic with my expectations, I would say, but still aiming big at the same time. So that is the Q&A wrapped up, guys. What are we on? Oof, 29 minutes. I think this is going to cut off very shortly. So I'm going to have to just clip this here, and we'll get back to you with the updates on the mini cut. Right, guys, so quickly before we wrap up, we have obviously been diet breaking for the last 5 days. So food has been increased by 75 grams of rice at 50 grams of cream of rice. I think the calories were, my rest day calories were brought up to what my training day calories were, but I've been resting and output has been reduced. So to be honest, there's not actually been much change in the body weight at all. Even though I've been resting and my output is lower and all that jazz, I'm actually the same weight as I was before we started this diet break. So when we started this diet break, I was 104 that morning. Body weight went up to 104.5, came back down to 104.1, and it's been 104.1 for the last 2 days, okay? So I think now, like next week, when we kind of drop the hammer again and we get stuck back into the swing of things, I think that should shift quite nicely. Like, you know, I think I'll probably be 2 pounds down on average this week still, and it was 1 kilo the last 3 weeks before, so I have still kind of been like in the deficit this week. But I think over the next month, you know, I'll probably push down another 4 kilos at least, probably a little bit more, and be fairly fucking lean at the end of it. Kuba wants me fairly lean, and to be honest, at this stage, I just want to be fairly lean, man, because I'm fucking getting a couple of issues. Like, my gut is just not in the best spot. My digestion is just not great, and as a result, my appetite's not great because of that. So I really need to iron that out and fix that before I go back into this next push-up, or, you know, it's going to end prematurely like the last one did. So yeah, I'm going to wrap that up here, guys, and not ramble on too much longer, because this video is going to be like fucking 40 minutes long. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll catch you in the next one.